the inspiration, be the natural leader in our care, in our care. Be the inspiration, be the natural leader in our care, in our care. Find your true calling, find worldly wisdom in APIIT hallowed ground. Come under highway, come feel the energy, come be inspired, come be inspired. It's your life, it's a great journey, a life of learning. It's your life, it's a great journey, a life of learning, a life so rewarding. So be the inspiration, be the natural leader in our care, in our care. Retrain your mind to be a future leader in a world of changes. To walk with pride, face all challenges. Know you found your strength. It's your life, it's a great journey, a life of learning. It's your life, it's a great journey, a lifelong learning. Inspiring synergy. Be the inspiration, be the natural leader in our care, in our care. Be the inspiration, be the natural leader in our care, in our care.
Thank you. Please be seated. As we continue to celebrate the opening ceremony of Alsinc 2025, we are ready to show you a glimpse of the diverse and talented teams that will join us this year at Alsinc, both online and on-site in Sri Lanka. Kindly direct your attention towards the screen.
Ayubovan.
Namaskaram. Vanakkam.
And greetings to
Alsinc 25.
And Devalora.
I'm Akshata Das. I'm Ritika Hecha.
and I am Prayag VS.
And we are Team A of Damodaram Sanjeevaya National Law University, Visakhapatnam.
We are excited to be there.
We're sure that this will be a very enriching experience. Thank you for hosting us. Bye.
We're the team from Horizon Campus, and I'm Karani Vijay Singha.
I'm Sakila Bandara.
I'm Celine Rodrigo.
And I'm Nikku Hapandama. We are excited to be part of Alsinc 2025.
See you there.
Hey guys, I'm Isuru Gunawardana. I'm Sadhana Hamdala.
I'm Kevin Pididura.
We'll be representing the Faculty of Law, University of Colombo in Alsinc 2025.
We are so excited to be a part of this competition. It's an amazing opportunity to negotiate with international teams and gain exposure.
We are thrilled to engage with you all and learn something new. Hope to see you guys there.
Hi everyone,
We are Team B from Sri Lanka Law College. I'm Adil Amgar.
I'm Nusa Amin, and we believe that Alsinc 2025 would be a great opportunity for us to improve our negotiation skills.
I'm Reshma Mashuda, and we are all excited to meet teams from all around the world. I'm Uzma Khan, and we look forward to seeing all of you there and having a great time.
Hi guys, we're Team A from the National University of Singapore. I'm Kai, a current Year 2 student.
I'm Samadrita, I'm a current Year 3 student, and we're really looking forward to Alsinc 2025 because we've heard amazing things about it from our seniors who have participated, and we're hoping it will be an amazing experience for us as well.
We can't wait to visit Colombo because it looks really pretty and we have had a whole itinerary planned out there. And we just can't wait to see everyone there at Alsinc.
Thanks, and see you there.
I'm Sidara Fatima.
I'm Nilan Shankar.
And we are here representing Gujarat National University, Gujarat, India.
And the 5th APIIT International Negotiation Competition 2025.
We are grateful for the opportunity to negotiate in a forum that values dialogue and discourse. And as Stephen Covey once said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. As future lawyers, we see negotiation as transforming different interests into shared achievements that endure beyond the table.
We look forward to having constructive exchanges, and we are grateful for the opportunity to be at Alsinc 2025. See you at the table. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Sia Chahel.
I'm Jagna Kanakanda. I'm Nitya Nair.
And I'm Rishabh Jain. And all four of us are from OP Jindal Global University.
We're excited to be a part of APIIT Law School International Negotiation Competition 2025.
We're grateful for the overseas support till now, and we're really looking forward to our stage show. See you all there.
We are Team A representing Royal Institute of Colombo. I am Mahiru.
I am Amina. I'm Tisuri. I'm Venumi. And we believe that great negotiation is understanding perspectives, maintaining dynamics, and creating lasting values while advancing knowledge.
We are thrilled to be a part of this year's edition of Alsinc.
See you at the table.
Hi, this is Vikrant Saraf.
Hi, this is Garima Chaudhary.
Hi, this is Anushka Mishra.
I am Atharvan Avandan. We are the team representing Nalsar University of Law.
See you in Colombo.
Hello, Alsinc 2025. My name is Henry Moli from the University of Nairobi, and I am looking forward to this year's competition.
Hello there, Alsinc 25. My name is Tony Samandi from Team D26, University of Nairobi. Really excited for the Alsinc competition.
Hi, my name is Yuvan Chundure, Team 26, University of Nairobi. Looking forward to the Alsinc competition 2025.
Hello, Alsinc 2025. My name is Fatma Hassan Awadan, a member of Team 26 representing the University of Nairobi. I'm very honored to be a part of this upcoming competition. I'm so excited to engage and learn with everyone. Thank you so much for having us.
Hello everyone, we are the team representing Nalsa University of Law at Alsinc. I am Bhavesh and I'm in the 3rd year.
I'm Tejasvi, I'm in my 4th year.
I'm Aditya, I'm in my 4th year.
Hi, I'm Megha, I'm also in the 4th year.
As a team, this is the first time we are participating on-site in a competition that is overseas. With the diversity of teams that Alsinc has to offer, we
meet people from all over the world, challenge ourselves and grow as negotiators.
We've worked really hard to get here, and we're really looking forward to the opportunity to learn, collaborate, and of course have a bit of fun along the way. So let's make it a great experience together.
Hello. We are from the Royal Institute of Colombo Woodcourt Bench team. My name is Mariam Shiraz.
And I'm Thasiran Alapirman.
And I'm Nadir Nirmala.
We are very excited to be taking part in Alsinc 2025.
We're looking forward to meeting and connecting with teams and professionals in the field from across borders.
See you there!
Hi everyone, I'm Akshay Pradukumar and I'm representing Swansea University at APIIT Law School International Negotiation Competition. I'm very excited about this opportunity and I'm really looking forward to sharpen my negotiation skills and to connect with global peers. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Isha Bobby and I'm representing Swansea University in this negotiation competition. I look forward to demonstrating my negotiation skills and gain valuable experience.
Greetings to the professionals of the APIIT Law School International Negotiation Competition. My name is Simbasai Ajo and I'm a law graduate at Swansea University. I I'm very much interested in negotiation competitions because of the exposure it grants you to being able to liaise with clients that are in play and just the practical experience of what is going to come about when I'm actually into my aspiring career in law. I also enjoyed the interactions that you gain and the commercial awareness that you also learn from being in different deals when you result in negotiation competitions. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yatifia Sarapia. I'm also a recent graduate of Swansea University Law School as well. I'm interested in this competition because it will give me a hands-on practical experience because I studied a negotiation module during my recent studies, and also it would give me some experience in alternative dispute resolution and just practicing how to negotiate deals, commercial awareness, and all the different skills that you get from dispute resolution. Greetings everyone, I'm Maitreyi.
I'm Kavitya.
And I'm Mikhail, and together we represent APIIT Candy at Alsinc 2025. We are looking forward to participating in the preliminary rounds
And make a lot of friends.
And have a memorable experience. See you there.
We owe a great deal of gratitude to Dr. Chaturavarna Surya for his invaluable support and guidance, which have been fundamental in establishing and nurturing Alsinc. His dedication and leadership have enriched the competition, and his ability to inspire and motivate us have been truly remarkable. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with profound respect and admiration that I invite you to join in extending a warm welcome to the head of APIIT Law School, Dr. Chaturavarna Surya, to address the gathering.
Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and dear participants. It gives me great pleasure to warmly welcome you all to Alsinc's 2025, Sri Lanka's only international negotiation competition. Held annually, this event is dedicated to enhancing global standard in negotiation and providing students with a valuable platform to deliver knowledge, skills, and diplomacy in this vital area. When we began this journey in 2021 with just 10 international teams and 5 local teams, the world was facing the challenge of COVID-19 and our competition had to be conducted entirely online. Since then, Alsinc has grown from strength to strength. Following the successful introductions of a hybrid format in 2023, the overwhelming response to Alsinc 2024, we are proud to continue this dynamic approach once again this year. For Alsinc's 2025, we are privileged to welcome 26 teams, 22 competing in person and 4 online, from countries including India, Singapore, the United Kingdom, Kenya, and Sri Lanka. Alongside them, we are joined by over 15 distinguished national and international assessors from India, Austria, Germany, Australia, the USA, the UK, Poland, and Netherlands. The Netherlands, Norway, Greece, and Sri Lanka. This remarkable diversity reflects the truly global spirit of our competition. A very special word of thanks goes out to our chief guest, Mr. Harsha Fernando, President's Counsel. He is widely respected as a role model for young lawyers, admired not only for his professional excellence, but also for his integrity and service to the legal profession. We are honored to have him with us today. I would also like to recognize the continuous support from certain teams certain teams whose commitment has enriched Alsinc over the years. The National University of Singapore team, the Swansea University team, the Nairobi team have participated consistently, and we deeply appreciate their loyalty. It is also inspiring to see such a strong presence from India this year. We in Sri Lanka have always considered India our big brother. And I must express my heartfelt gratitude for the generous support India extended to Sri Lanka during our recent financial crisis. My thanks also go out to adjudicators, both those present here and those joining online from across the globe. Your dedication and expertise have invaluable in ensuring the quality, integrity, and fairness of this competition. I'm equally grateful to the management of APIIT for their generous financial support and to the staff of the Commercial Credit Academy for their unwavering assistance in organizing this event. Finally, my deepest appreciation goes to the students who have worked tirelessly to bring Alsinc 2025 to life, together with their two dedicated patrons whose guidance and encouragement have been truly invaluable. Our hope is that all participants will leave this competition with a deeper understanding of how negotiation can be used to achieve mutually satisfactory solutions. These skills will prove to be of immense value in your future careers and professional relationships. Thank you once again, and I wish you all a rewarding and memorable experience at Alsinc 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chatura, for your kind words. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Gamidu Hemachandra, a key figure in the growth and academic excellence of APIIT. With over 2 decades of experience in the higher educational fields and 14 years of teaching experience in software engineering, Mr. Hemachandra has played a vital role in shaping the institution through his leadership as the Deputy Director of the World Bank-funded IRQUE project and Head of Academic Development and Quality Enhancement. His efforts have been instrumental in driving quality and innovation at APIIT. Please join me in welcoming the Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Gamidu Hemachandra, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Ravini, for that overly kind and generous introduction. Chief guest, Mr. Harsha Fernando, President's Council, the head of the APIIT Law School, Dr. Chatura Varnasuriya, patrons of the Moot Debate and Mock Mediation Society, Ms. Natasha Vijayasekara and Ms. Ravini Pereira, chairperson of this wonderful event, Adila Ramzi, and co-chairperson, Keshini Siddharan. Knowledge partners, You Decide Mediation Sri Lanka and International Mediation Campus, UK and Germany. Education partners, Waga Negotiation Institute, Norway, and the Institute for Development of Commercial Law and Practice, Sri Lanka. A warm welcome to all of you to Alsinc 2025. I'm very pleased to acknowledge the 5th edition of Alsinc. This has been a journey of amazing consistency, of persistence. And for that, thank you, Chatura, and to the law school for carrying the torch forward one more year. I think it's worthwhile, Chatura mentioned that Alsinc started way back in the midst of COVID with 10 international teams and 5 local teams. It has today grown to, and I'm reiterating what my colleague Chatura said earlier, 26 teams, 22 in-person 22 teams competing in person, 4 teams competing online from countries including India, Singapore, the UK, Kenya, and we are joined by 15 national and international assessors from countries such as Austria, Germany, Australia, the USA, UK, Poland, Netherlands, Norway, Greece, and Sri Lanka. A very, very warm welcome to all the participants, competitors, and adjudicators. Alsinc gives a wonderful opportunity for all of us to learn, to inspire learning, to inspire love for learning. That is in fact APIIT's motto. And I'd like to share a few thoughts on the subject of learning. Based on Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. The book's main thesis is a differentiation between two models of systems that we have in our heads. One, fast, instinctive, and emotional. The second, slower, deliberate, logical. So system 1 is used to, if I ask you what's 2 plus 2, system 1, 4. You don't think about it. What color suit am I wearing? System 1, gray. At least I hope it's gray. Yeah. But then, system 2 is slow, effortful. It's not used very frequently. I mean, right now, I think all of you system 1's active. You know, opening statements are not really interesting, so all right, I'll go with it. But system 2, if I ask you to count the number of people in the room wearing red, system 1 doesn't quite cut it. You can't go off the cuff. You've got to put effort. Parking in a tight spot. Yes, you can't. I mean, driving is probably system 1 for most of you who are used to driving. But parking in a tough spot, you've got to think about it. You've got to, put some effort into it. Answering the question, will you marry me? Hopefully, system 2. So, hopefully, I've induced you to activate system 2, to pay attention to maybe what I'm about to say. Hopefully. I mean, if system 1's still active, that's not on you, that's on me. I've simply not been interesting enough. As getting system 2 to train our system 1. Slow, deliberate, logical, sifting through things. Train system 1 so that we can do it quicker, faster, efficiently. That's my interpretation of it. So to activate this learning, you need a few things. To create this, environment where system 1 or system 2 trains system 1, you need a valid environment. This is just to say, let's take the example of a carpenter. I mean, obviously I don't think a carpenter could learn a whole lot of carpentry in a classroom. You've got to be in a workshop. So it takes many repetitions. You can't, the carpenter in the workshop, you can't get him to, make a chair and then expect him to consistently churn out chairs. You'll probably need to practice that day in, day out for some time. Immediate feedback. Imagine a carpenter making a chair and a month down the line, his guru comes and says, no, that's not quite right. It's not going to cut it. But if your teacher is there in the workshop with you saying, no, that's not the way to do it, this is the right way to do it, immediate feedback. That helps you learn. And very importantly, deliberate practice. Deliberate practice of carpentry. Yeah. So I believe Alsinc gives most of this, or to a large extent, a lot of these components. A valid environment. I'm sure there'll be many, many rounds of competition, so repetition. I believe the feedback's going to be immediate, right after a round. And 5 days that the competitors will spend deliberating matters to negotiate. 5 days of that, of deliberate flexing of that system too. So humans are good at actually acquiring new skills. I mean, those of you who are used to driving, it didn't take much, right? I mean, sure, it must have been tough at the beginning, but you don't even think about it now. You're probably on autopilot most of the time that you drive. We're good at it. Now, here's the thing. I think, system 1, system 2 combined, humans are probably a little lazy. So, wherever possible, we try to get through by system 1, automatic. So it needs kind of events or educational experiences like this to flex system 2. And I'd like that last part, deliberate effort. That's probably the key. So in negotiation, what is the nature of effort? I would like to propose that in negotiation, you must appreciate the other. Not just the point of view, not just the context, but truly understand where your adversary is coming from. Not in the context of the problem that you're trying to solve, but also the human being that your adversary is. You need to appreciate their wants, their needs, their fears, their aspirations. Isn't this a skill that we need in everyday life? Not just negotiation. In our interactions with colleagues, our interactions with partners. If this skill is better developed, don't you think that society as a whole, industry as a whole, would be a better place? Alsinc gives you the opportunity to experience the other. We have India, Austria, Germany, Australia, the USA, UK, Poland, Netherlands, Norway, Greece, Sri Lanka. And the individuals who compose all these teams. That's a lot of others to learn from. That's a lot of others to appreciate. Alsinc gives you all of the opportunity to get to know each other, learn each other's context, wants, fears, dreams. My hope is that all of you leave Alsinc with bonds of friendship that will last a lifetime. Get to know each other, really understand each other, appreciate the other. My very best wishes to Alsinc 2025. May it be a space for deliberate practice, to be uncomfortable, to fight through the confusion, to develop, internalize new knowledge and skills, and the space to appreciate the other. Have a wonderful week of negotiations, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Gamidu, for those inspiring words. We now turn to recognize the driving force behind Alsinc 2025, the organizing committee. This dedicated team has worked tirelessly to bring this event to life. Please direct your attention towards the screen as we introduce the organizing committee of Alsinc 2025.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege to introduce our chief guest for today, President's Counsel, Mr. Harsha Fernando. Mr. Harsha Fernando is a President's Counsel and the head of his own law chambers, offering expertise across civil, commercial, appellate court litigation, conflict management, commercial mediation, and negotiation in both local and international contexts. He has served as a legal consultant to several major organizations, including the Asian Development Bank, European Union Delegation, Japan International Cooperation Agency, and the World Bank. His public service roles include staff consultant to the ADB, senior state counsel at the Attorney General's Department, and legal advisor to the Central Bank and Telecommunications Regulatory Commission. In 2024, he was appointed Commissioner of the Securities and Exchange of Commission of Sri Lanka. He has also served as a member of the Incorporated Council of Legal Education, legal advisor to the Secretariat for coordinating the peace process, and as an expert on committees for electricity and petroleum market reforms. Currently, he advises the UNDP on mediation and access to justice initiatives with the Ministry of Justice in Cambodia. Mr. Harsha Fernando has taught at leading institutions including Queen Mary University of London, the Postgraduate Institute of Management, the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, and Sri Lanka Law College. He has also worked as a consultant trainer for Sea Change Partners in Singapore and consulted for International Securities Consultancy in Hong Kong. He is recognized contributor through leadership in corporate governance, legal risk, mitigation, anti-corruption, and conflict management. Mr. Fernando holds an MBA from NTU Singapore and MIT USA, and an LLM in economic regulations from King's College London. He is a Chevening Scholar of the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office, a Fellow of the MBA program at NTU, and was awarded the Most Outstanding Young Person of the Year in Legal Administration by Junior Chamber International in 2011. President's Counsel, Mr. Harsha Fernando, it is with great honor that we invite you to deliver your remarks.
Thank you very much for that generous introduction. Dr. Hemachandra, Dr. Varuna Surya, distinguished assessors, and competitors, and students of APIIT. First of all, I would like to extend a very heartfelt gratitude for inviting me as chief guest for this event. When the invitation came, I think Dr. Varuna Surya can confirm that without batting an eyelid, I said yes, simply because, one, it's always an absolute pleasure to work with and be with the future leaders of this world. And number two, do so in a university setting. And if you can do it in association or in connection with a subject that is very close to my heart, negotiations, you couldn't have asked for a better occasion. So thank you very much. And I'm so glad that I came, and I must confess, even with the little bit that I saw up to now, I did not expect this to be of this high a standard. So congratulations at the very beginning to APIIT Law School for initiating this, I believe, about 5 years ago, and they were developing it to this level. And I think the kudos should definitely go to the student organization who would have spearheaded and given the leadership, bringing all these teams together, getting the sponsors together, and choreographing the event to the extent that you have done. So I think you should give yourself a good pat on your back for a job well done so far. And I'm sure, judging by what I have seen up to now, the balance also will go very well. Now, I've been asked to speak for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, so stop me if I go beyond that time. As you said, lawyers tend to speak without stopping. And then especially when you have to talk about a topic that you love, it's very difficult to stop. Now, I know for the next 2 days, you all are going to, quote unquote, be in competition with each other. And I think Dr. Hemachandra set the tone by giving a very insightful way of looking at negotiation as a life skill. And I completely endorse the manner in which he brought that about. And when I was a law student many years ago, we did not have negotiation as a subject. We were taught to be so sure about our case that there was no possibility that we will lose. We were trained to be that. It's only after many years of learning the hard way that I realized that the sign of an intelligent person is the ability to maintain two conflicting thoughts parallelly in your mind at the same time. And that's what you're going to do when you start negotiating, because you need to know what you want, and also you need to know what the other side wants. Because unless both your wants are satisfied, you will not get what you want. So in that context, in terms of negotiation, as you can see with my generous introduction that I was given, I've had many, many hats. But one of the hats that I thoroughly enjoyed was my negotiation hat. And let me tell you, that's not a hat that you can remove. My definition of negotiation, I mean, it's certainly not mine, but that I've gathered over a period of time, is that every time you're influencing somebody, you're negotiating. So right now, if I'm intending to change your perception on certain things or get you to see things slightly differently, I am negotiating with you, even though we are not sitting across the table with a formal brief. And I say this, having negotiated from getting my 3-year-old daughter, as she was then, to eat, to negotiating ceasefire agreements at the time when Sri Lanka had the civil war. And now, of course, I have got into a very comfortable zone of negotiating and mediating mostly commercial disputes, both locally and internationally. And I know, I presume it's all law students who are taking part in this debate, yes. Just day before yesterday, in a place close by in Panadura, I was invited to give a speech to the Bar Association of Panadura, where I had to emphasize to a much older audience as to the importance of negotiation in a lawyer's life. And I had to start by saying that there's a lot of money to be made in negotiation, if you do it right. But for you, I'm not going to say that. Maybe you can keep it at the back of your mind. You're not certainly compromising on your leverage as a lawyer. You're not. You're enhancing your leverage as a lawyer. And if you adopt my simple definition that every time you're influencing somebody or negotiating, you will actually become a very powerful person. The question I ask a lot of people, I do training in negotiation, I prepare clients to negotiate where they don't want a negotiator representing them, and then of course mediating disputes. One question I ask them is, how do you assess the other side? Is it a difficult negotiator or not? So for example, if you're negotiating with a company, because of perceptions you have based on how big that company is, you might think, oh my gosh, it's a tough negotiation because they're a big, powerful company. But at the end of the day, you're not negotiating with a company. You're negotiating with a decision maker who is a human being, just like you and I. So if you can figure out how to get that human being to say yes to whatever that you're saying, you got yourself a deal. So, and this I say, having negotiated with people who have chosen out of the ordinary ways of getting what they want, some even resorting to violence and taking weapons for that matter, as well as getting a 3-year-old to eat. which is one of the toughest negotiations you can have. But at the end of the day, I always focus on the individual, just like you and me, a creature of emotion. And if you can, just simply figure out what ticks that person, you got yourself a deal. So that makes negotiations very personal, a skill, and to borrow or carry on from what Dr. Hemachandra said, a habit, a way of life. So what APIIT and this competition has provided to all of you is a fascinating experience for multiple reasons. One is you are testing a life skill which will make you a very effective, and if you want power, a very powerful individual, because people who can influence are very effective and very powerful in the future. But also it's enabling you to test those skills in a low-risk environment. You don't want to take oaths in another 2, 3, or 4 years' time as an attorney at law and then first negotiate $1 million deal for the first time. You won't be able to sleep at night or the previous night. But if you have had the experience of doing so in these low-risk environments or low-risk stakes, but do it as if your life depends on it, you will walk away with an amazing experience that you will not get in a hurry. The second biggest aspect is you're negotiating with colleagues from multiple jurisdictions, different countries, different cultures. Now, I know there is a lot of literature out on multicultural negotiations. For me, every negotiation is multicultural. Because even if you are negotiating between 2 companies in Sri Lanka, the company cultures are different. If you are negotiating with 2 friends as to where you want to go and see the movie this evening, they come from different perspectives, different interests. To that extent, they become multicultural. So the faster you recognize it and the faster you acknowledge it, the better you will be at whatever that you are doing. But the important thing about having colleagues from different countries is you get a taste of some of those cultural nuances. The more you are attuned to those, the more influential you become. So I was privileged to work with the Harvard negotiation program. I don't know whether you all have heard of it. I'm assuming still the Getting to US is a very powerful textbook that's been used, the interest-based negotiation. So Roger Fisher was a pilot in the Second World War. And I think after the war, he got into university through that GI Bill, and he was looking at a way, can we resolve our disputes without killing each other? And then he sort of populated this particular method. It's not something that he invented, something that human beings have always done, but he was able to articulate it and populate it, and of course Harvard is very good at branding stuff. I went to the better university there, so. And then here we are, that is becoming a very powerful tool, interest-based. Of course, that is not the only way, but it's a very powerful way to negotiate. But again, as I said, I come down to the simple definition of it's all about influence. It's all about influence. So the next couple of days is not necessarily about your legal knowledge. It's a recognition and acknowledgement, application, and use of your skills. Skills as a pre-lawyer, skills as a young professional. So start looking at it that way. And it is not a skill that you could separate, I'll do it at the table when I'm engaged as a lawyer and sort of keep it at the gate when I go home. No. You do it all the time with your family, with your friends. The toughest negotiations are the negotiations you have with the people whom you're closest to, because you're so interdependent. If you're not dependent, you don't need to negotiate. If you can get what you want on your own, you don't need the other side to do something for you to get what you want. Negotiation is all about that. Negotiation doesn't create winners or losers. So it will be very difficult for lawyers to get out of that mentality. You will hear the word or phrase, or you would have heard the win-win. How many have actually thought about it? If I ask you to define win-win, can you? I can remember I was doing this training for a group of military personnel, senior military personnel, some time ago, but a long time ago, probably about 10 years ago. And we had this US general who came up and said, for us, winning is fighting two wars at the same time in two different parts of the world and winning them both at the same time. That's not the definition of win. How do you, when we say win-win, our definition is, I am going to win. If you win, good for you. That's not going to cut it. Win-win means you genuinely try to figure out how is it that both of us can walk away from this deal with more cake and not a bigger piece. That's a complete change in mindset. So today's use of those skill set should be in that proper context, in that proper mindset. The world is interconnected. And these days I'm reading on Mr. Altman and his escapades in AI. Mr. Elon Musk's and their race for supremacy over the world. You guys are getting into a very scary world for me, from my perspective. Your whole life is going to be online, available. Information is going to be available at least for a few at a press of a button. So in this interconnected world, how do you compete? So you might want to start thinking about collaboration as a better way to get what you want than the sort of the traditional competition that we used to do. Because the resources are finite, needs are infinite. So collaboration is a way to go forward, and today, through this program and into the run-up, you are acquiring that only skill, or the most important skill in going towards that collaborative approach to life as you grow old. So I hope you have fun, which I'm sure you will do. I hope you will not forget to take the essence of what this is all about. This is not about winning. This is about forming relationships. This is about forming or crafting solutions that are sustainable, that are good, that adds value, that enhances the lot of everyone in the long term. It is only then that you can look back and say, I was part of something that created whatever that we created. So, I wish you all the very best, and I am so glad once again that institutions like APIIT, which obviously has a strong brand name, but I didn't realize that you had this level of activities going on, for organizing these events and giving the opportunity to the future leaders, the future lawyers, the future judges, the future policymakers, and the future husbands, wives, brothers and sisters, and parents to be better human beings. Because if you come back to my original definition, every time you are influencing somebody or negotiating, that's a life skill. That's a way of life, it's a mindset. So I was wishing you all the very best. Let me leave this one phrase with you. In life, you will never get what you deserve. You might, but you will always get what you negotiate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President's Counsel, Mr. Harsha Fernando, for those insightful words. As we continue to celebrate the spirit of excellence and collaboration, it is essential to acknowledge and extend our deepest gratitude to our partners of Alsinc 2025. As our knowledge and education partners, we begin with the International Mediation Campus UK. IMC offers 2 full scholarships for their 40-hour certified mediator training program and 4 full scholarships for their 60-hour self-study mediation training course. These scholarships will be awarded to outstanding outstanding participants who successfully complete Alsinc 2025. The final selection will be made by IMC in collaboration with Alsinc Board. We are honored to have the Director of the International Mediation Campus, Mr. Ian Ridgeton, with us today, and we cordially invite him to address the gathering.
Your Honours, distinguished guests, fellow adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, and all participants. Ayabawan, Vanakam, Namaskar, Namaste. For our friends in Nairobi, Jambo, Mazuri Sana, Salam Alaikum. On behalf of the International Mediation Campus, I am truly honoured to extend our heartfelt and support and best wishes to all participants of the APIIT Law School International Negotiation Competition, Alsinc 2025, taking place here in Colombo. It is a deep privilege to be part of this very important and deeply respected international competition, now in its 5th year. As a knowledge partner, we are very proud to support and participate in this event and to share with and learn from the teams together. And that is one of the key things, I think, of competitions like this. No matter your experience or where you come from, we all learn from each other. Every single day there is something new to learn. This event represents a significant opportunity to foster cross-cultural dialogue, deepen understanding of alternative dispute resolution, and cultivate the next generation of skilled negotiators and mediators. It is a privilege to witness you, the participants from around the world, come together in this spirit of collaboration, learning, and respectful engagement. The competition closely aligns with the IMC mission, which is to train people to become mediators and negotiators, empowering them to help resolve and transform conflict locally, regionally, and internationally in multiple thematic disciplines to make a meaningful difference. We teach and practice transformative mediation and negotiation, creating the right environment and conditions for actors to change their behaviors sufficiently enough to attain lasting and amicable solutions. We believe strongly in empowering the global mediators of the future and negotiators to go out and try and reduce conflict and tension in the world, to bring conflict parties closer together to resolve their differences. Finding alternative ways to reduce conflict can only be good for fostering of long-term stability. And as His Honour Mr. Harsha said, one of the key things in the world we live in at the moment is it's a very scary place. It's a dark place. And there is a definite need for mediators and negotiators to go forth and try and make that a better place. We commend the APIIT Law School for their continued championship of alternative dispute resolution and for empowering mediators around the world to practice their art. And I believe it's more of an art than a science. We'll hear more about that later in the panel discussion. To all the competitors, we wish you a rewarding and enriching experience, both in and beyond the competition. And we hope that you enjoy it and learn greatly from this prestigious event. Spread your wings and fly. It's not about the winning, it's about the taking part and learning from each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ian. Next, we have our educational partner, Institute for the Development of Commercial Law and Practice, Sri Lanka. As our esteemed educational partner, ICLP is offering one full scholarship and a special discount for their arbitration course, both of which will be awarded to deserving participants of Alsinc 2025. The recipients will be selected jointly by ICLP and the Alsinc board. Let us now hear directly from ICLP. Please direct your attention to the screen.
The Institute for the Development of Commercial Law and Practice, or the ICLP, was founded in 1992 to support Sri Lanka's shift to a market-based economy. ICLP's mission has been to advance and share knowledge in commercial law, building the legal foundations for sustainable economic growth. From the very beginning, ICLP has been a partner in reform, a pioneer in dispute resolution, and a trusted hub for commercial legal expertise. In 1996, ICLP launched the ICLP Arbitration Center, providing a professional, neutral forum for resolving both domestic and international disputes. It has played a vital role in developing Sri Lanka's arbitration culture, helping businesses settle matters fairly, efficiently, and in line with global best practices. To build professional capacity, ICLP introduced its Diploma in Commercial Arbitration in 2005. Covering arbitration law and procedure, international arbitration, construction adjudication, pleadings, and award writing, this program has trained generations of respected arbitrators and counsel. In partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, ICLP expanded into maritime law education by launching the Diploma in Shipping Law and Practice, which covers the areas of maritime law, carriage of goods by sea, admiralty law, international trade, port operations, marine insurance, and customs procedures. ICLP also offers short courses and seminars on key areas of commercial law, from intellectual property and company law to construction arbitration and adjudication, ensuring professionals stay current in their fields. In collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce, ICLP established the International ADR Center at the World Trade Center in Colombo, where businesses have access not only to arbitration but also to mediation and other modern, collaborative dispute resolution methods. Today, with over 3 decades of service, ICLP remains committed to nurturing Sri Lanka's commercial legal landscape. From training the next generation of professionals to providing world-class dispute resolution, ICLP continues to serve as a beacon of legal excellence, supporting justice, commerce, and progress.
Next, we welcome another of our educational partners, Vega Negotiation Institution, Norway. As a part of their contribution, the founder and director of WNI, Mr. Rothan Vega, conducted an exclusive masterclass for Alsinc 2025 participants titled The Importance of Relationships in Negotiation, held via Zoom on the 7th of August. Let us now hear directly from Mr. Rothan Vega.
Organizing committee. It is truly a joy and an honor to be standing here with you at the opening of the Alsinc 2025. On behalf of the Vega Negotiation Institute, I want to express how proud we are to be your educational partner for this inspiring event. At WNI, we live and breathe negotiation, mediation, and conflict resolution. But more than that, We are passionate about supporting the next generation of law and business professionals to step into the field with both competence and confidence. These past months, I've had a great pleasure of working closely with the organizing team, and let me say this, what a team. Professional, visionary, and deeply committed to creating an experience that brings real value to every participant. From creating the e-booklet you all have received, to writing one of the role plays you have prepared so well for, and leading the masterclass earlier this month, this journey has been full of energy, learning, and purpose for me to contribute, to this event. And it's you, the students, that bring it to life. Engaged, curious, and ready to stretch yourself in new ways. That's what makes Alsinc special. Alternative dispute resolution, or as I like to challenge it, perhaps we can find a better A word. Why not think of ADR as adaptive dispute resolution, or authentic, or even advanced? Because what you're doing here isn't just an alternative to negotiation, to litigation. It's the future of resolving differences in a smarter, more human way. Negotiation and mediation are not soft skills. They are strategic essentials. They build trust, unlock creativity, and allow people to move from conflict to collaboration. And that's what the world needs. Around the board tables or in front of the screen, in parliaments, in supply chains, preparing a peace treaty, and in small local communities or sports clubs. And here's a little secret. Once you start seeing the world through the negotiation lens, you will never see it the same way again. So whether you are here to compete, to coach, or to connect, know this. You're building skills that matter. Skills that change outcomes. Skills that change lives. On behalf of WNI, thank you for letting us be part of your journey. We are proud supporters of what Alsinc represents, and even prouder to support all of you. Enjoy the competition, learn boldly, negotiate kindly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rod. Next, we have You Decide Mediation, Sri Lanka as our knowledge partner. We are happy to acknowledge You Decide Mediation as our valued knowledge partner for the 5th edition of Alsinc. Next, we have our external partners. For our photography partner, Yasansa Photography. And our travel partner, Uber. Our media partner, LivePic.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege to invite the co-chairperson of Alsinc 2025, Ms. Keshini Sridharan, to deliver the final address for this opening ceremony and to represent the guidelines for the competition.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Keshini Sridharan, co-chairperson of Alsinc 2025. It is with my great pleasure that I warmly welcome all of you gathered here today. Head of APIIT Law School, Dr. Chaturvarna Surya, our chief guest, President's Council, Mr. Harsha Fernando, participating teams, expert assessors, members of the organizing committee, and all other esteemed invitees. I stand proudly before you today at the 5th edition of APIIT Law School's signature event, Alsinc. This year's competition is bigger and better than ever before, continuing to hold the distinction of being Sri Lanka's only international negotiation competition. We have introduced a number of new exciting elements this year, carefully curated to ensure a meaningful experience for you all, especially for those who have traveled long distances to be with us here today. As the organizing committee, we are committed to ensuring that Alsinc 2025 offers more than just a competition. We hope to create the Alsinc 2025 rulebook has already been shared with all of you, and I encourage you to familiarize yourselves with it. The matchups for the competition and the agenda for the week have already been uploaded to the participants' Drive folder. And any changes or updates to event timings will be communicated to you without delay. For all events other than the cultural networking session and gala night, the dress code will be Western formal. On the days of the competition, teams must arrive at the venue at least 30 minutes before the start of the confidential preparation time. The confidential information for each round will be sent to you directly through mail. Please remember that while you may bring electronic devices to use before the round, mobile phones, tablets, smartphones, and any other devices will not be permitted during the negotiation sessions. You may, however, make use of any materials provided by the organizing committee, your personal notes, or any other printed resources. Additionally, each team may bring one single-sided A4 sheet print to share with the opposing team and the expert assessors. Calculators and regular watches or timers are also allowed. Finally, I must emphasize that smoking or consumption of alcohol or drugs within the Commercial Credit Training Center premises is strictly prohibited. Should you have any concerns or questions at any point of the competition, please do not hesitate to approach to me or any members of the organizing committee. On behalf of the entire team, I thank you all once again for being here, and I wish all the participants the very best as we begin the rounds tomorrow. May this year's edition of Alsinc be a truly wonderful experience for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keshini. And with that, we conclude the opening ceremony of Alsinc 2025. I kindly request everyone to rise for the national anthem of Sri Lanka.
Sundara Sri
Thank you for joining us in commemorating the opening ceremony of Alsinc 2025. Please join us for refreshments at the dining area. Following the break, we have an enriching panel discussion lined up for you starting at 12 noon, which will be then followed by lunch.
actually wins negotiations. We'll feature Mr. Ian Rigdon, Director of International Mediation Campus, UK and Germany, and Dr. Apurva Dixit, Associate Professor of Law, Certified Mediator, and Arbitrator from India. Guiding this discussion will be our moderator, Ms. Keshini Sridharan, Co-Chairperson of Alsinc 2025. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on game theory versus human behavior, what actually wins negotiation. Once again, I'm Keshini Sridharan, and I'll be your moderator for the day. And it's a privilege to be joined by two incredible experts who have spent their entire careers navigating the intersection between strategy and human psychology. Joining us with today, we have Mr. Ian Rigdon and Dr. Apurva Dixit. Mr. Ian Rigdon is the director of the International Mediation Campus. Mr. Ian joined the British Army in 1980 and spent 37 years in uniform, retiring in 2017. He spent most of his service in the Brigade of Gurkhas in many places around the world. He has spent the last 8 years working as a humanitarian. He worked for the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue Asia Regional Office and Myanmar team from 10 July 2027 to 28 February 2025, working on the Myanmar peace process, and then crisis, engaging with multiple actors. He also supported HT's wider efforts across South Asia. He has taught mediation and negotiation and facilitated multiple dialogues during the last 8 years to many people affected by conflict throughout Southeast Asia, and further afield with another 15 years plus negotiation and mediation, practical and teaching experience in the UK Armed Forces prior to that in many thematic areas. We have Dr. Apurva Dixit, a distinguished legal academic, practitioner and trainer, currently serving as an assistant professor at the School of Law, GD Goenka University, with a PhD in arbitration law and an LLM in corporate law from Hidayatullah National University. She brings a wealth of expertise in corporate law, arbitration, mediation, and cyber law. Dr. Dixit has been recognized with awards like Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan Best Faculty Award in 2021. She is also an accredited arbitrator, mediator, and a certified trainer under the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, contributing to workplace equity and dispute resolution. Over the next hour, we'll dive into fascinating questions when the theoretical elegance of game theory meets the messy reality of human emotions, which ultimately prevails. We'll explore this with these two sharp negotiating forces, and we will see what it truly takes to succeed. Without further ado, I will start with my first question, which is directed towards Mr. Ian. Mr. Ian, let's start with something very fundamental. At its core, what do you think negotiation is? Is it more of a science or an art? What is your thought on it?
Thank you, Kishni. My view is it's very firmly an art, supported by science. So to me, art is about creative skill. It's about the application of human thought and imagination. But also, art is also about repeating and being good at something. But with science, we're looking for a bit more logic, we're looking for structure, and that also applies to mediation and negotiation as well, to have that structure. But to me, the overriding element of any mediation or negotiation is actually human interaction. And therefore, to me, it's definitely an art. It's reading the situation, understanding the situation, but using the science to support that. So in the case of a mediator, for example, or a negotiator, the process that you're engaged in, understanding the conditions, the rules that are set, how you operate within that environment, there is a certain amount of skill to that, which does require some scientific basis. Data collection, logic, obviously active listening, is a particular skill set which can be taught. More importantly, I think, with mediation negotiation is conflict analysis, actually understanding the conflict, and there's a certain amount of science that goes with that as well. But I do think it is very firmly an art, and science supports it.
That is a very powerful way to frame it, I believe. Now that you mentioned that it does have a scientific side to it as well, I will direct my next question to Dr. Apurva. If I ask you to give a very concise and a very powerful definition of what game theory is, how would you explain it? And how would you explain the basic principles of game theory for someone who has never heard of it?
Thank you, Geshni. Let me start with a basic definition. It's a structure of strategic thinking, actually. Now, while I talk about strategic thinking, wherein the outcome is not only dependent on what I do, it's also dependent on what the other person is doing. So let me break it into abstract sense, wherein the move of the company and the players are interrelated. It's about how I act is completely different, and how you act are interdependent. My success will not be dependent only on the decision which I'm making. It's going to be dependent on what the other person is also making a move. There are certain blocks and, let's just say, pillars of game theory, as they keep it. First one happens to be the players. And the people who are making the decisions are the players here. Then comes a picture of strategy. What are the options you're building upon? And when I talk about options, are the options only going to be talking about my benefit or my profit gaining? But it is also something which is going to be beneficial for the other person. There is also a point of payoffs. When I talk about payoffs, it's just not about my benefit. In the inaugural, we did understand the concept of win-win. It is just not about win-win where both the parties are winning at an equal pace. Then there's a concept which is known as Nash equilibrium, which we were talking about, wherein you're contemplating and thinking about a part that what is the other person going to do? I'm predicting, I'm assuming what is going to be the move of the other person while I make a decision for my own. You see, this is happening at a very basic level in daily circumstances as well. In business negotiations, even as in the case of a business meeting, am I going to make the first move or the other person is going to make the first move? And my move is only dependent upon the next person's. So to cut it short and to put it in one sentence, game theory is actually the assumption of other person's move before you make your own. So that would be my answer.
I think the distinction between the actual definition of a game entirely differs from what a game theory is in terms of negotiation.
Certainly, it is not a game. You might call it game, but it is far different from the actual game.
So it definitely doesn't depend on who wins the game, but it is how you understand and strategize your move. In terms of that and having it in mind, Mr. Ian, do you think game theory is a very relevant lens for understanding the negotiation dynamics, or should you think it should be an essential part of negotiation at all?
Well, I think to my distinguished colleague made the point that the issue I have, and I'll start with the provocation, the issue I have with game theory is not that there's not some utility in it. I have a background in strategy and modeling as well. But the issue for me is the very word game. You're dealing with human interaction here. So when you are mediating or negotiating, you're dealing with other people. And so for me, the word game doesn't sit comfortably in that sense. Some of the skills involved in the development of the assessing the other side of what they may do, there is some utility in that perhaps. But there are many other models and ideas that can be used in that context. Many years ago, the great American writer Samuel Clemens, who's better known as Mark Twain, he said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. In other words, you can't predict history, but there is a rhythm to things. So you can have some idea of what might happen, but you don't actually know what's going to happen. And one of the issues, I think, for me with game theory is this issue of being able to, the idea that you can scientifically predict what might happen, when the reality is that humans think for themselves, and their rationality may be very different, especially different culturally, different languages, it may be very different indeed. So for me, the difficulty with game theory, as a modeler, I can see the logic of doing it, but I personally think that you have to apply a certain amount of judgment to something like game theory to make it work properly. Otherwise, you're not taking into account all the key factors. And for me, I think there is some utility. There are lots of models you can use out there, lots of different ways of thinking. There are lots of different ways of developing strategy. I personally wouldn't use game theory to develop my strategy. I might model, if I was a negotiator, I might model what the other side might think. And this is where I come back to art. Because for me, if you're negotiating, your focus is on your counterpart. You're looking at your counterpart. You're trying to understand them, whether it's a person or a team. You're trying to understand what they're thinking, how they might think about particular circumstances. And that is definitely an art. You're watching body language, you're watching the way they react to proposals you put on the table. You're trying to understand where they've been in the past, you're studying them. It's very difficult to predict exactly how they're going to behave, but you have to judge that moment when it's right for you to make your move, or put your cards on the table. You judge that position right. You can't do that from predictive modeling, in my view. It's only when you see them across the table you can actually do that.
I think all of us got an understanding that game theory is a tool, is a valuable part of the entire toolkit of negotiation, but it definitely is not the only tool, and it has to be piled up with human emotion and other psychological elements of negotiation. If, Doctor, directing it back to you, if game theory generally assumes perfectly rational players. So in real negotiation, people bring emotions, biases, and other human factors, and there are multiple ethical dilemmas. In your experience, where have you seen human irrationality that has completely thrown a game theory-based strategy off course?
Thank you for that question, Keshni, and you're absolutely right. Perfect rational is little delusional sometimes because it does not exist. While I come to a table to negotiate, I can prepare a strategy, but that might fail completely with what is being brought on the table from the other side. So yes, rationality is overpowered certain times by emotions, fears, pride, and that's what happened. You might have heard about the prisoner's dilemma. There's a classic example for that. So two people got arrested. The way out was that if both stay silent, they will get 1 year of prison each. If one betrays, the betrayer gets out and the other one stays there for 5 years. And if both betray, they cannot go out. So the strategical part would be to actually think about their personal gain and betray each other. And if they do it, it's not going to be a rational decision for both of them. So you see now, while we're talking about examples, in salary negotiations that happens. Employer would definitely want an employee to work at a certain rate. And technically, employees usually take up the offer as well. But I have seen people rejecting an offer not on the basis of paychecks, but on the basis of the designation which is given, because they felt humiliated. So the game theory went off completely there. Strategically, if you think she is getting a good paycheck, why should she worry about the designation? But game theory fails here on the basis that it is always not about what is being brought on the table, but what's the emotion behind it. I want a proper designation and legislative respect in the eyes of the employer, and that will be more than enough. Maybe certain pay balance would be fine for me, but not at the point of the designation. So that is why there have been multiple examples where you will see that emotions have overpowered the rational decisions. And it is all about, actually, I have to predict the smartest move based upon the other person's choice. I can contemplate on the part that as an employer, that the other person might be ready to work at this salary, and the designation might not matter for them. This is an example which I faced, that was I'm telling you, that people reject those offers just on the basis their emotions were not considered. Their opinions did not matter, but it's just the strategic mindset which the other person had, and what was brought on the table did not pay them off well. So the payoffs which we discussed in the first part also matter a lot, and also the interdependence. You can check off a lot of boxes that I did this, I heard the other party, but did you really hear the emotions behind the voice? That's what matters the most, and game theory is actually put up the table a lot of times. Because in reality, nobody can think rationally while you're negotiating. Right? A lot of overpowering happens in the aspect of whatever factors are being discussed. So there are situations where game theory actually puts off the table. So yes.
I think that's a fantastic example of how the theoretical aspect of negotiation can completely differ from the practical aspect of it. And negotiation is still a fundamental human interaction, so human psychology does definitely play a major role in it. And in that scenario, if we bring empathy into mix, something deeply human, Mr. Ian, how does that change the game in your view? In what ways can empathy be used strategically to expand the value for everyone? And where do you think the risk of complicating the clean rational calculations lie? And what do you think would be the consequences of this?
I think we have to think for ourselves, what is it we actually want out of a negotiation or a mediation? And if you think with game theory, we've been talking, and I agree entirely with what my colleague said, when we talk about game theory, and I'll come on to emotion, you can't predict people's emotions on the day, so that is very difficult. It may have a bad day at work the day before, there may be some other influence, may have a sick child, there are lots of ways that might change the behavior of that actor when you get round the table. And I think what we're trying to do, particularly with mediation but also negotiation, we want to try and create at least a consensual environment where people can actually talk together. As the first thing. As a mediator, your role is to try and produce a process that will allow people to come together to jointly discuss the issue at hand. And you want to come up with some sort of joint solution at the end. But what most people want from a negotiation or a mediation is they want some kind of defined certainty. They want some form of settlement, some accommodation of settlement, which allows them to move forward. And in the best negotiations and the best mediations, you want somewhere where you can continue to live with your decision afterwards. And actually you don't burn your bridges. You're still in touch with the people. If you're in a commercial situation where you're a supplier and a user, and you're reliant on each other, you can't afford to have such a disharmonious conversation that you can't work together in the future. You've got to keep together. So for me, emotional intelligence is absolutely the critical part of negotiation or mediation. It's watching the other side, understanding the other side. And in that relationship, I think there are two things where emotions can be harnessed in the right way. And the first thing is that it's really understanding what is the nature of the negotiation or the mediation you're doing. Is it a political negotiation? Is it a commercial negotiation? Is it a technical one? Is it professional to professional, either medical profession, doctor to doctor? What is the nature of that negotiation or mediation? The second point then is the character, because every negotiation has a character, and that character is a spectrum to me. It may start adversarially, where you definitely are not on the same wavelength at all, and you've got to try and build that trust over time. It may start off as transactional, and I've got this, you've got that, we can make a transaction. But what you're really trying to do is to bring it to a relational account, where you build a relationship together. So it's that spectrum. You may start adversarially, you want to get to a transactional stage, but ultimately you want to get to a relational stage where you can relate to each other, you have common ideas, you may not agree on everything, but at least the future you create is better. And you can only do that if you are emotionally intelligent, if you read the situation well. And that's why I came back to my point at the beginning, which is I feel that negotiation, particularly and mediation, is an art. It's about how you understand other human behavior and you react to that. And on the day, the trouble with modeling in the game theory is it may not be the same person you think they are in your prediction. Maybe other factors that change them on the day. And you've got to be able to roll with that and come up with a better solution at the end of it.
I personally do love the aspect that empathy is not just a tool, but it expands the entire negotiation and it helps understand multiple other aspects. It's more a tool to expand the pie. Speaking of strategy, we have multiple teams that are going to be competing tomorrow, Doctor. tomorrow's teams have had their time to prepare. And as a judge, when you see a team applying game theory, what exactly are you looking for? What kind of an analysis should be visible in their strategy for you to understand that they have excelled in game theory?
So Keshti, that's going to be a little tricky. Because when we talk about game theory analysis, it's just not about applying the Nash equilibrium or checking of the prisoner's dilemma. We'll be more than happy to see how the teams are actually strategizing the entire move. In the first question which you asked, I told you there are certain pillars of game theory. One of them is the decision makers. Are the actual decision makers sitting on the table, or the decisions only going to be affected or decided by them? There are a lot of factors involved. Are they really looking into it? Also, when we talk about, are they mapping the strategies? Strategies are mapped usually by thinking about the first person's choice. But in this, I want to understand what are the realistic options available. Because it is just the automatic mindset to think about yourself first. That's how you are programmed. So mapping of strategies being done in the sense that you're understanding the other person's opinion as well. And payoff analysis. Is this really going to be beneficial for me? Or is it just going to be beneficial to the other party? While we talk about you have to predict the smartest choice of the other person, you might be completely wrong as well. So we're just not talking about the equilibrium being ticked off or the prisoner's dilemma. You'll have to map down these strategies, payoff analysis, as well as an interdependence. That it is not only the parties but a lot of factors based upon which the decision is interdependent. What I am deciding might be dependent on the other person's choice as well. The other party can also apply the same game theory. But is it interdependent or not? And also, while we talk about the equilibrium part, it is important for the parties and the teams to understand that you cannot exactly recite the game theory. You will have to have rationality into it, and also the analysis of the situation, right? Because you can be assuming a certain strategy which the other party might be bringing on the table, and they're completely thinking differently. You can be blown off. Then what do you do? So you also, final would be to understand your limits. You're being creative, you're being empathetic, you're being understanding the entire situation, but you cannot go away with the flow just because the other person is having certain kind of emotions. So you have to stay in your limits as well. I think that's the mix of the qualities, or let's just say the ingredients which we'll be looking for tomorrow's for the teams to actually, how they perform on these. So please keep in mind, if you're making notes, all these points, do keep it, make a good strategy while framing your negotiation plans.
Thank you for that, Doctor. I appreciate the distinction between just applying the game theory jargon and actually using it as a lens. And it's definitely the subtle human element that helps you win at the end. Keeping that in mind, we have talked about how human behavior often wins over pure theoretical game theory. In this competition setting, Mr. Ian, what specific behavioral elements are you looking for?
It's a very good question. I think, well, first of all, I just want to sort of frame it slightly differently. To me, if you are a mediator or a negotiator in this context, you're a leader. And I feel very strongly that negotiators and mediators are leaders. But there are differences. As a negotiator, I lead my team. I have a mandate, I have a red line, I have a bottom line, and I have to steer through that to achieve what I need to achieve as a negotiator. So in that sense, leadership is slightly easier, it's slightly more focused. As a mediator, I have no decision-making authority whatsoever. I'm reliant on both parties, but I control the process, and I control that process, design it in such a way that I can hopefully lead by example, and the way I behave is a good example to the people who are interacting. If they follow my example, then they will be able to eventually discuss things with each other. It may take time to do that. So what I'm looking for when you're negotiating, particularly as participants, I'm looking for you to be you. Being a negotiator or a mediator is a personal journey. I want authentic negotiators. I want authentic mediators. I want you to be yourself, not to pretend to be something that you're not, to use your natural abilities. Obviously you have some training and you have some preparation beforehand, but it's you, authentically you at the table, trying to achieve whatever task you've been set to achieve. So that's the first thing, be yourself. The second thing I would expect to see is some leadership. I would expect you to lead that team, obviously be the negotiator, and very clear in your approach to how you're doing things. I would expect to see that. The third thing I would expect to see is that you have at least got some form of strategy, some sort of plan that you're going to try and use as you go forward to try and achieve the results that you want to achieve, accepting, and this is the key thing, the fourth point, is that you can adapt from that. Because, you know, in my original military background, we always had a famous saying that no strategy or plan survives the first shot in anger, and that's true. So when you actually sit at the table, you might come up with a great approach to something, and most of us, it's like a sparring party. You're looking at each other, you're trying to put an extreme option on the table, then maybe a more credible option on the table, and eventually we hone it in over time to the zone of potential agreement in the middle, where we're starting to get to somewhere where we can actually talk and discuss, and we may come up with some joint options potentially. Okay, so I want to see that. I want to see how you react to that. Use your emotional intelligence, use your empathy to try and understand the other side. If we can do all of those things, then actually you're probably on the way to achieving quite a good negotiation.
It was a very powerful point that you need to have the ability to read the room when it comes to negotiation. Doctor, we also heard you speak about Mr. Ian, and both Doctor and Mr. Ian, both of you had mentioned about how you cannot definitely stick to a script when it comes to negotiation. You will always be faced, you will always have to face unexpected circumstances. And in that scenario, as a judge, what would you expect the team to do if in case they have to face some unexpected circumstances, a roadblock? How would you know that the parties are actually engaged in this negotiation and they're not just sticking to a rehearsed plan?
You are right, Keshni. Like, the fact sheet can provide you a structure of strategy, but in real negotiation, that does not work. There are a lot of last minute information or new data which will be thrown at you, and how do you react to that? We really would want to see the teams, if they're being thrown off with certain kind of new information, how they react. Either they are actually listening the party really, and how do they react under pressure? Because if sometimes I'm prepared with one strategy and something else is given to me, I might just get overwhelmed and be little emotional, and I might not know how to react. So how are they reacting to the entire situation under pressure? A good team or a good negotiator would be actually thinking, pausing, reflecting and absorbing the situation, rather than reacting immediately. I don't know from where did you bring this information. I do not know. Instead of that, take a pause, reflect, and what could be the best possible outcome for this. Also, flexibility in strategy. If I have a fixed strategy, see, there's no straitjacket formula for having a proper negotiation, because it depends upon the situation which you are in. So if I do not have that kind of flexibility in my strategy, that if I do not keep, let's just say, plan B as well, plan C, or sometimes till Z, I do not know what are the options which will be the other party bringing in. So I have to be flexible in my strategy. And another aspect could be about the creativity while handling the emotional distress at the table. I'm handling the emotions, I am not ignoring or I am not rejecting their outcome, but I'm also being creative. Creative in the sense that I am paying attention, respecting the other person's behavior, and also not deviating from my path. So it's like you have to pivot without losing the purpose. You are not throwing away your client's needs and still adjusting to the needs of the other person. Whatever your strategy is applying, you will have to stick to that, but without deviating from the main plan. As in, you can adjust, you can make flexibilities and strategies which are according to the situation given, but you cannot pivot from the main motive and lose the essence of the entire negotiation. That is something which the team should work upon.
I think all of the teams here and the teams that are competing tomorrow would have understood that it's presence over script. Presence is what the judges are looking for. You can take a note of it as well. And that takes us to a deeper question about what winning actually is. Mr. Ian, everyone enters into a negotiation competition wanting to win. But as a judge, how do you define a win in negotiation? Is it always about the best numerical deal that a party could get? Or does real victory often mean about demonstrating a blend of strategy and human human connection? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think, well, we were talking at the beginning, I think, and again, the subject is about game theory. And of course, game theory, Newman's idea was based on a win-win scenario, that there are lots of options that you could come up with to allow you to win. To me, and again, I said at the beginning, the competition is, to me, it's not about the winning, it's about the taking part. But of course, you want to win, you want to come out on top. And I rather use the quaint English word, which is prevail. What I would like to do is to prevail. I don't want to necessarily win. I want to come out on top with a good relationship with the other side. So I want to prevail in my bottom line. I want to achieve that as best I can. And if I have to make some compromises to do that, that's good. It'll give me the human interaction with the other side, we'll build a relationship, and we'll achieve the result. That to me is a good, if you want to put it in terms of win, but I wouldn't call it that, I would call it prevail. I've come out on top, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. And so for me, the winners, the best winner would be the person who actually most tries to understand the other side, most tries to come to some kind of amicable solution that can bring both those parties together, at least a decision they can live with, that both sides can live with. And seeing their specific, the humility that you require to do that is also quite important, I think. But it's about, all negotiations about human relations. And we live in a river of words that we speak every day to each other, we communicate. We're never going to agree on everything, we're always going to have disagreements. Sometimes we have to negotiate, sometimes we can't succeed without somebody has to mediate that negotiation. It's a series of life choices and journeys through that river of words, the dialogue that is our constant background of communication. And so for the best negotiators are people who understand that understand that you may not solve it the first time round, it may need a second, a third, a fourth round to achieve that. But for the best teams, what I'm looking for is that understanding, the human intellect, the emotional intelligence, the empathy that allows them to come up with a decision which everybody can live with and be comfortable with that.
It's definitely understood that a win in negotiation is always a mutual solution, something that both parties can agree on, and not just that you get the better part or the better version of it. With that, as we wrap up, I would love to hear from each of you to share a personal moment, an experience where the outcome of negotiation completely defied your initial game theory. And what did you do? What did it teach you about the limits of game theory and the powers of human element? Anyone could take it, Doctor.
Okay, I'm happy to go first. I won't say the context, but I was involved in a negotiation, a peace process, which required me to, with a colleague, to shuttle back and forwards between two particularly intransigent sides. And we were mediating, but we were trying to bring those negotiating parties to the table for a very important annual conference. And there were three really critical things on the security sector that we wanted to have on that table for them. They wanted to have on the table. So we spent 6 months going back and forwards, lots of caucus, lots of discussion, and we asked permission to share the information with both sides. And we were so close to achieving that negotiation between the two of them for those items to go on the table at this annual conference. And at the very last minute, one of the groups, which was an ethnic group, imploded into three separate factions, literally the 24 hours before they were due to fully negotiate. So with all that preparation, everything else, thinking that we understood the people very well, which we did, and we prepared very carefully, it just didn't work. Because something outside our control, a different form of rationality, a different event, one group breaking into three factions, unhinged the whole thing. So 6 months' work just disappeared. So one of the points is that you can't always succeed. And sometimes, and you have to roll with that. You have to roll with it, understand it, learn from it, and then try again and develop new approaches from that. And this is really the point as we come to game theory. It's not a game. It's about human life. It's about human choices. Some are rational, some are irrational. And it's trying to understand that to do it for the best benefit.
I'll agree to that, and similar set of series happened with me. So there was a contract between a supplier and a distributor. On the paper, it perfectly looked like the real incentive part was in the favor of a distributor because he could get a lot of suppliers from anywhere. and the supplier could have actually bowed down and accepted the negotiation as it is. But when the real negotiation actually started, the lead negotiator from the supplier's side brought a different energy on the table. He played with emotions there. He understood the element of human connection and said that it is very important for him to survive and keep this relationship alive. He does not care about the money part, he does not care about anything else, but he wants to preserve this relationship, which he has had with the supplier since a long time, and distributor. So what happened was that the distributor, which had an upper hand in the entire picture, actually melted down and understood. He could have actually shoved this contract completely aside and move ahead, but he did not. He understood the emotion part, and he actually understood the needs of the supplier, and he just agreed to the needs while making few changes. So that completely made me see a different side of human element. So if we talk about game theory, it's certainly one side of a lens, which has to be combined with the other side of lens, which is human emotion involved. And there is a part of sensitivity which is also there. So game theory might be well perfect in the case of paper, but if it is not backed up with the human emotion element and the sensitivity, it cannot actually succeed at all. At all.
I think I might just add to that. I think one of the things, it's just a thought, as education becomes amazing with all the internet connectivity, the information that's available to people, and as each generation learns more and more, I think the issue is that we have a tendency to over-intellectualize everything. And I think that's one of the issues, I think, with game theory. It's a very good model on paper, but it doesn't necessarily apply in reality. That's not to say that all modeling or simulation is a bad thing, but you have to apply certain judgment to it. So in the modeling that I've done in the past of particular scenarios or situations in different contexts, whether it's humanitarian, whether it's military, one of the ways that we get around that is by having a judgment panel, a panel of actual experts who can then look at the information, the size, and put some human interaction to it and some reality to it. Otherwise, you don't get that dose of reality that you actually require. And you know, I've taught leadership for many years as well, and you look at the plethora of books on leadership, actually they overcomplicate something which is fairly straightforward if you think about it in a rational way. And it is, again, it's about you, it's about your interaction, how you react with other people. So I totally agree with the doctor that actually it is the human interaction is the key element. That's not to say that ideas and models aren't useful. They have their uses, but it's just making sure that it's used in the right context in the right way. And game theory for me is not something I would use in the same way, although I understand some of the logic behind it, and I like some of the ideas between the decision makers and the players, but I don't see it as a game. That's the thing. I see it as human interaction.
It is definitely understood that human element is not a variable, but it is a driving force in negotiation. At this point, we'd also love to hear from the audience. If you have any questions, yes, sure. Ms. Kathleen?
I have two questions, one for the students and one for myself. The one for the students, what would be something tangible the students could try with game theory in this competition? What would be something? What would be something tangible the students could try regarding game theory in this competition?
Trying to understand from my counterpart is, if I assume that they're not going to meet me halfway initially, so I'm assuming that on one side of the spectrum they're not open-minded enough to change. What I'm going to try and do is make them open-minded enough to change. So I want to move them from a position where they don't want to change to a position where they accept some form of change. So that's the spectrum I want to move them on. So how do I do that? I'm a huge fan of Terry Bacon, an American writer who writes a lot about influence. He's also a science fiction novelist as well. He's quite an interesting character. But he says that when you try to influence somebody, which you're trying to do as a negotiator, and influence is the key, I think. There's two ways of doing that. You either do it indirectly, But in the case of negotiation, you're doing it directly. You're facing each other across the table. And so in the negotiation, it's a direct influence, you against, or you with the counterpart, not against, but you with the counterpart. And I have three approaches to that, and I may use all three of those at the same time. The first one, where game theory would come into a degree, is the idea of logic and data, so the scientific approach. I have certain data, I have certain facts. If it's commercial, business orientated, there are certain facts. If I don't have this amount of supplies, this can't happen. If I don't have this transport, this can't happen. So data and facts is one way. Logic is the important thing. The second approach that he says is it's the idea of socializing the context. So you build that relationship with them and you socialize together ideas and try and push boundaries, try and find mutual common ground that you may be able to react over. So you have logic and you have socializing. The third, which is the more common one, I think, in most negotiations and mediation, is emotion. Because you can get quite heated within that context, but also we have emotions, and you can use them quite profitably. So in a humanitarian way, I might say, my God, if you don't do that, this is terrible. Everything's going to go to hell in a handcart. It's all going to go appallingly badly. Or I could be slightly more useful in my approach and say, I'll use emotion and logic together. The reality is, if we don't get these 10 tons of supplies through this checkpoint into this displaced person or refugees camp, the likelihood is actually within the next 2 months that 100 children are going to die. So we need to get those supplies, in particular the medical supplies. So I'm using emotion, but I'm also using it logically. So I'm using both together. So my advice to the students is, in terms of the participants, is in terms of your approach, which approach to influence are you going to use? And most of you will use all three of those. But if you temper them the right way using emotional intelligence, you can use emotion to good effect using logic, and from that socialize together the idea or the context that you're trying to arrive a solution for.
So that's similar to Aristotle's three appeals. You just move and pivot between the logos, the ethos, and the pathos.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have one point to add from me, and I think I completely agree. One thing which the students should keep in mind is that whatever strategy they're putting on the table, they should have a proper reasoning behind it. If I say I want this thing to be done, or this is a possible solution for me, what is the reasoning behind it? The minute I start explaining the reason that why do I want this thing to work out, the minute the other person will understand, maybe they'll understand the rationality behind it as well. So if I am having certain demands, if I explain the rationale behind those demands, that is also going to play a very great role, because if I only have my needs in picture and I do not explain it to the other party, but what if the decision which I'm making right now is going to be helpful for them as well? And if I do not explain it on the table, they might outrightly reject my idea. So the explanation part and the reason behind taking such moves is also very important.
Which is the position and the interests that
Exactly.
we teach. Okay.
Exactly.
The question for me as a facilitative mediator, non-lawyer, where the negotiation starts with historical meaning brought in from the past, and then at the table we can create new meaning, and then the settlement agreement is usually a combination of the historical plus the new, and it's also part of, the apology where you make amends, so it's actually making amends. Does game theory do the predictor of all the options out there, and does it show the pattern between the predictors on the way to a solution?
I think not really. To me, with game theory, I think it's too rigid. Okay, it assumes a certain amount of rationality, which is not necessarily there in the reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's too actually simplified to capture the richness of what could happen around that table. So to come specifically, Cap, with all your experience of all the many mediations and negotiations you've been involved in, you have built up, you have that dynamism that comes with being you as that person. You've achieved it because of your human emotion, your ability to emote and deal with other people. And I think that's the problem with game theory, is that it doesn't really take cognizance of that in the same way. It's a model, and it's a model that can be used, but it doesn't necessarily equate to you as an individual. And I think we need to get to that stage where we are really using that emotion, who we are, to understand the problem, understand the counterpart.
But does it operate within the logic?
Yes,
and then do the connectors?
I mean, game theory operates within logic.
Okay.
But it's a certain type of logic. It doesn't necessarily take into account the external factors that affect the use of that logic or the understanding of that logic.
Okay.
So that's why I say when I've done modelling in the past, applying a judgment panel allows you to adjust some of those factors. So, I mean, I think a simple way, for example, for participants to there's one of our trainers who's wonderful, Maria Francesca Francesa. She does a really lovely little exercise. It's very simple. So while you're preparing for your negotiations, the exercise is very simple. You're either a mum or a dad, and you've got a child, and you want them to wash the dishes, and they don't want to wash the dishes. Just practice that, and see from that emotion between the two, what is the logic that the child uses to say, I'm not going to do the dishes? What is the logic you use to persuade them to do the dishes? It's a very simple little exercise, but it does prepare you as a negotiator. And it's always a difficult circumstance for those of us who are parents. That's not necessarily a common thing, but it's a real life example. But that gives you some idea, perhaps, of how to just simply prepare yourself. Think of something similar and prepare it in that way.
Okay.
So you're emoting, you're using that logic. You're using all of those approaches, social, logical, emotional, to try and get your point of view across.
Okay, thank you, both.
I'll just add one more point to that, because what happens basically while we're talking about the game theory, there is no set formula which can be applied to any situation, and it promotes that. It thinks that the parties are going to think in this manner only, and then this game theory can be applied, which in reality does not happen. As we discussed few examples from me and Ian's personal experiences, it does not work every time. It is just too good to be true situation wherein this rational and practical answers would work out, but in reality, real negotiations do not work on those theories. So game theory is not a game, it's like a chessboard, as we were talking, that what my strategy is going to be the move based upon the move which you are making. So it in reality does not happen like that. So a lot of factors come into picture while making a decision, which game theory actually outrightly rejects.
Hi, my name is Atharva. I'm from Nalsar University of Law. Firstly, thank you so much for your views, and this is a very novel topic for a panel discussion. I had one question. You both spoke about how human emotions often overpower rationality in negotiations. In speaking specifically about commercial negotiations, do you think there is still some extent of predictability and there is still some extent where you can apply game theory and predict the outcomes when we speak of commercial negotiations especially?
I won't deny to the part that there is certain kind of predictability still there. I gave you an example right now of my personal experience where on paper it looked perfect, that is going to be favoring one party only, because facts-wise it showed that they had more leverage. But when the emotions were combined in that scenario as well, the tables turned. So you cannot specifically rely, and there's no like a 100% sure shot practical aspect that only the human emotions play an important role or the practicality plays. It entirely depends upon the situation which are in. It can pay off in any manner, depends upon the subject and the situation which you are in right now and how you're handling the negotiation. Game theory can work out to a certain extent that you're predicting this is going to happen, but the minute emotions get involved, you might face something else.
Right.
And I would just add, as I was saying before, that there's nothing wrong with using modelling to work out what you think are the options. But you need to apply judgment to that and work out what is the best option for you to pursue, but it may not be the one that your counterpart will accept or is comfortable with. Therefore, you need to adapt to that. And I think that, for me, a simpler framework for understanding what we're trying to achieve, I mentioned about defined certainty, and I mentioned about an amicable solution. So to me, I look at negotiation and mediation, but negotiation particularly, in four main blocks. And the first block is actually, the last block is the one I'll start with. The last block, what you're aiming for, is some kind of reconciliation. If you're commercial and you're reliant on each other, you want to be able to reconcile sufficiently that you can live and work together in the future. So reconciliation is the long-term kind of aim. You reconcile to achieve a common purpose, work together to achieve common profit, or whatever it happens to be. But the starting block for that is the initial engagement. How do you engage on this problem? And you need to choose, using your intuition and innovation, what is the best approach to get somebody to the table to start that engagement. That's the first thing. That's the first block. The second block is then around that table is coming to some kind of accommodation together where you at least agree the agenda and the key points that you want to discuss, and where you may potentially have some common ground. And the third block is that defined certainty. It's the settlement that you're trying to achieve from that. Now, if you set the conditions correctly, this is not modeling, but if you set the conditions correctly for the engagement and do it in the right way, so if they're adversarial, you move them to a relational setting through a transactional setting. Once you've got that engagement right, you then get that accommodation correct, then you can hopefully reach some kind of settlement. But the long-term aim of achieving that reconciliation is there. And it's a common approach that I've used on work on peace process, etc., but it applies in all contexts, I think. Engage, accommodate, settle, and then reconcile your differences sufficiently to live with the results and work together.
So what I understand is that emotions, the power of emotions and them overpowering rationality exists in all kinds of spaces, and rather than looking at a very particular framework of game theory, we should have a more flexible approach towards.
Absolutely, and I think, whose rationality is it anyway? When you look at rationality, we assume they're all rational, but on the day, things can, some things happen that can completely change. You're right. If you look at some of our world leaders today, they've set a new paradigm because it's difficult to predict what they think. But in their own minds, they have their own rationality, and the teams that support them have their own rationality as well. And we need to try and understand that. And it's difficult sometimes because they defy our own logic or rationality. It's not the framework that we understand. So part of negotiating is getting comfortable with frameworks you don't really understand, but you need to try and understand to achieve those options.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anushka. Thank you so much for such an informative session. My question pertains to the point that sometimes, because of the competitive spirit of the competition, negotiations seem to become a little bit hostile. So can you suggest some things to come out of it in the best possible way?
Well, you obviously heard of the hostile takeover, and that's, there are circumstances where you're basically negotiating parties achieve a result which actually burns the bridges completely, and there's and they don't expect or want any relationship after that. And in those circumstances, it really depends on the people who are negotiating whether you're prepared to accept that or not. But ideally, the world that we're trying to get you to go forth into, to spread your wings and bring conflict resolution to a different field, a different level. Ideally, it is not about that. It's not about burning your bridges and going. It is about achieving somewhere where you can actually go in the future. But of course, you will have hostile negotiations. There's no question about that. It's going to happen. Human nature is like that. Some people are unpredictable. Some people are very hostile. Sometimes, unfortunately, in business, you may be in a position you have no option. You have to sell the company. That's the only option you have. And it may not be the best deal. But you have to accept what it is because of the position you've been pushed into. And that's not the ideal world, really, that we should be working in. But that's the reality that sometimes happens.
I think I'll agree to that. And while you face such situations, just take a pause. That will be the best option right now, because if you are the person who is facing the aggression, you do not want to react to it. Just pause and reflect and maybe take a break. You can do that in real life negotiations as well and understand the situation, how you well can understand the other person's situation and then maybe react or respond to that. Not react, but respond to that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure. Sure, thank you so much. I am Garima Chaudhary from Nalsar. Thank you so much for this novel panel, because we do not just have a commercial background, but we also have a peace offering background, which is giving us a more broader view of what a real life negotiation feels, which pertains me to a question that real life negotiations are usually within a larger time frame, where you have hours of multiple negotiations which bring out which cull out a lot of different emotions and different timings and sensitive information. But when you are at a competition setting, you have almost 60 to 90 minutes to do that. You have to bring in hard and soft power, you have to bring in both your game theory, your human behavior, and all of that has to happen within 90 minutes. So in that situation, what are your suggestions? How does a team effectively balance all of these emotions and strategies of a commercial transaction, of any other transaction, within time and space?
I mean, that's one of the disadvantages, of course, in competitions. It's a very short time frame within which to pull all that together. So your preparation is very important in that, because you're trying to basically take away all the many hours of things that would have happened beforehand. And I mean, sometimes some of the simulations I run can go for 5 days on the same scenario. And I've done 5-day, 6-day, 7-day simulations where we've gone through the whole process from beginning to end, especially in the humanitarian peace process context, capacity building, training people to do that. And we felt the best way of doing that was to take them through the whole process, every stage of it, from the preparation to the introduction, agenda setting, etc. But the reality is, certainly in the context I've worked in, is these take a very long time. So I did a study some years back where I was comparing 12 peace processes, and the average length of time, first of all, it took to get to the table for the actual parties to negotiate, and then following that, post the agreement, the average length of time it took to actually achieve 75% of the peace accord. So the average time to get to the table was between 25 to 30 years, okay, to get to the table in these contexts. And the average time to reach 75% of the peace accord was 27 years. And throughout all of that process is mediated negotiation, all the way through. Continues both before and after to get to that level. So, many different scenarios, but the things we work on, particularly in the peace building world, you're talking about years. You look at the Congo, 70 plus years of conflict. You look at Myanmar, 75 years of conflict, and they're still not resolved. They still have issues, which will be going on for some time to come, sadly. But we need to try and find some way, we collectively, internationally, of making that better, and of actually trying to reduce that amount of time to getting to some kind of solution. And also the other thing I think with those sort of processes is the amount of time you fail. And we are the people in the arena, but particularly the local mediators, the local internal mediators, their own country, trying to mediate these solutions. They are the people in the arena. And sometimes they fail hugely, and sometimes they succeed hugely. But often it's somewhere in the middle, where it's part failure, part success. But it's just having the perseverance to keep going with that. But it does affect people's emotions, and when you're around the table and you haven't achieved success over long periods of time, it can become very adversarial, particularly when whole groups, whole societies are entrenched with a particular viewpoint over time. It's very difficult to sway them from that, to build trust when conflict's gone on for so long. So in 90 minutes you can't replicate anything like that, but what you can do is get a very good, and I was doing some competitions recently, the skill that you all show, and you will show, I'm sure, is very palpable. You're passionate, you want to succeed, you want to learn and become more professional as you go forward. So that 90 minutes is important. Doesn't matter that it's 90 minutes, it's what you do with that 90 minutes. One of our famous poets, Rudyard Kipling once said, if you can fill your time with 60 seconds worth of distance run. So no matter how old you are, wherever you are in life, I'm still in my 60 seconds now. I'm still trying to make a difference at 63. you're trying to make a difference. That 90 minutes is your 60 seconds to actually try, and try hugely to succeed and do well. And if you fail, you fail. It doesn't matter, because you've learned from that experience.
I completely agree with him, and also understand in those 90 minutes we do not expect you to resolve the dispute. That's not kind of pressure we would want you on your shoulders to have. Basically, in those 90 minutes, how well are you handling the situations? As your teammate talked about the hostile situation, how well do you respond to it then? Are you stuck on one agenda only? Are you only handling those 90 minutes, or rather let's just say a large portion of that time, to one agenda only? How well are you communicating your needs? Also, if you're stuck in a situation, move to the next point. And maybe you can always take the plea that we will discuss this in the next meeting. That's the practicality part, because we do not want you to pressurize and think about all the 5 agendas, if there are so many, to discuss in those 90 minutes only. How well you're communicating? There are a lot of aspects on which you will be judged tomorrow. So do not take the pressure that within those 90 minutes you have to do everything. But whatever you do, how well you're doing it, that's the most important part.
Can I answer that question as well? Definitely.
So you capture the logical facts in your power of summary. If you're going to reiterate summary, that's 100% accurate, so that shortens your time. If you're going to paraphrase and substitute your word for their words, you're going to lose your accuracy potentially and take a little more time, but maybe capture the spirit of what you're hearing. And if you reframe the story that you're hearing, that's going to take a longer amount of time. You pick up a tool and put it down when you want to use it, but to capture the emotionality is when you summarize. You summarize the facts and then the and. And did I hear frustration in your voice as well? So you have to guess. So the way you move in mediation seems like, sounds like, looks like, feels like, as your negotiator, am I hearing frustration in your voice? If you're wrong, it's okay, because you're going to get corrected, which means you're going to get the accurate emotional tenor. If you're right, you're going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, how frustrated are you? You're going to ask that question, and they're going to give you a number. It's easy to give you a number than it is to talk about it. Now you've got your emotional tenor clarity as well as your fact clarity. So you do it all together, because you'll never have that moment again. You do it right there, right in the moment. I call that mediating the moment, okay? And so try it. Thank you.
Yeah, be brave, be calm, be confident, and be fearless, and be bold. You know, that's what you've got, that 90 minutes. Make the most use of it.
So I guess I was also about to take permission from the panel to be answering, I guess, the 3 questions that the Nalsar team posed, right from where the first question came, that in real life, do we have a game theory? The answer is a yes. Specifically in India, the Lok Adalats, that's the best example of the game theory that you can ever see practically getting possible, where one party, and I'll name, like for example, it can be a telecom company who have lost a customer that they're not paying the bills, but finally through the Lok Adalat settlement, you'll get that. It's the best example for game theory. Question for the situations getting hostile, so it becomes on 2 things. And I'll borrow the answer from Ian. You are the man of the match in this thing, particular round, whichever you are getting. And you are in 2 positions. Number 1, either you are the one who has brought this situation on a hostile. Many a times, getting hostile is a win. Best example, the 4th test between India and England. Getting a draw was a win. Now you'll have to understand when getting in hostility is you are using as a sword in your particular favor. Second, when you are in a stage of a stuck with somebody getting on hostile, and I'll borrow her answer now, that yes, it is you who will have to identify and give it a new turn. No, you can't change the facts. You can't change the facts. You cannot hypothetically draw some new facts. So what you are doing, you'll have to bring out a point, okay, from where on this hostility I can bring that thing. And an answer, I guess my answers, 2 of the answers have been very clearly that I am that versus in between the game theory and the human behavior. So I'm of a favor where, for me personally, it's 60% game theory and 40% human behavior coming together. And again, when I say human behavior and game theory, even in game theory, like for example, I have given this many examples that game theory is just like a handkerchief which I'm carrying right now in my pocket. I know for the entire day I was getting ready, how am I looking? That handkerchief was in my pocket right when I was in my room and will come out from my pocket, and I can forget that as well when I'll reach back my room. I might not use it for the entire day. But if something falls on my shirt, or if I get a sneeze, I'll take and utilize that particular. So whether it's human behavior to be utilized as a tool, whether it's game theory that is utilized as a tool, you as negotiators have to keep every such tool in your pocket. Now you'll have to depend, like if it is I have to cut a paper, I'm not going to take the hammer out of from my tool. And if I have to put a nail in the wall, I cannot take out the scissor. So as negotiators, and specifically I'm just talking only in the perspective of the competition right now, and that's where I lead to the third question of her, 90 minutes. Now see the problems, and I'll tell you from that particular angle itself. When, and being one of the, like I joined her in framing one of the problems with the rounds. Now, the problems are not faced for the real life things. So they are framed in this manner for 90 things. I'd borrow Apurva ma'am's answer again. You are not, we are not asking in 90 minutes, give me the solution, then only you are going to leave the room. No, you are not. Plus, see the, I do not know whether the organizers generally do share, but the grounds on which you people are going to be marked for that 90 minutes. And at no point, whether game theory was used, yes or no. Whether you had this particular thing, yes or no. No. These things are exactly in which and whatever space you are going to use it. Now, what I'll say is something with the chief guest in the morning things said about too, that why the law schools today are focusing on these things, why your institution promoted you to be here, why APIIT is doing it for the last 5 years, being the only institute in Sri Lanka, and why at my law school when I was a law graduate or if I was at your shoes, why this subject did not even was taught to me. The answer is this exactly. Now, at the point somebody can stand up and say, sir, I have been taught the negotiations at my law school, and I am pretty hopeful with all of us, we were not taught the negotiations. But that's how the perspective of experience too comes into play. So these competitions are just the playgrounds. And you know, and I'll again come back to Ian's answer, it's only about the 90 minutes. Now, in a game for 90 minutes, which can be the final of the World Cup as well, I am being selected for years of what my experience was all about. And these all tools, mastering tools, I guess a team of 3, one can be the master of game theory, the other can be the human behavior thing, and then utilize who is going to take the lead and who's opening the match today. Is depending on that particular situation that I would be trying to sum it up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the floor. So I'm just going to quickly get to my question. So game theory inherently, as the name already suggests, it's theoretical, it's heavily theoretical, while human behavior at the end of the day, it's again really variable depending on who the party is and what they're really going through. So now my question here would be, how exactly are we to really get the best of both worlds when it comes to game theory and human behavior to actually win a negotiation? But then again, there's a factor that's always in play. For example, if we take the prisoner's dilemma, none of the entire theory would not even matter if the prison guards were paid off, if the system was paid off to just let them free. So taking that in mind, how are we really to combine both to really get the best of both worlds? Thanks.
I think, as I was saying before, I think the idea of modelling is not a bad idea. So actually thinking about what options might be available. So game theory at least allows you to look at the decision makers who's involved in the negotiation. You can actually model out some possible options. But that to me is as far as it goes. Once you actually get to the table, they could think this, they could think that, they may think something completely different. So you can use it as a model to get a rough idea of boundaries as to where somebody might think or might do. But when you get to the table, you have to take it as it comes there. And you have to watch very closely and negotiate just using your logic, emotion, all things we talked about. So you can use it certainly as a modeling tool, no question about that. But I think you can make it better, as I said, by applying some judgment, by looking at different factors that affect the decisions those people might make on the other side there. And you can also, you can rehearse beforehand, rehearse how you might want to approach your strategy. and practice your emotion in that context. So I normally prepare myself before I'm doing something, whether it's negotiating meeting. I normally try and rehearse beforehand, get some idea with my team how the other side might react to something. I'm normally completely off-piste and they do something completely different. That's fine. But at least I've actually warmed up and we're ready to go when we actually get to the table.
To add on to that, I'll just take 30 seconds. Keshni has already signaled me to keep my mouth shut now. I'll just take 30 seconds to add on to Umar. Basically what happens is that through the game theory, I get to predict what might happen. I just have a rational set of ideas that this is the, or looking at the fact sheet and set of papers, I can predict this might be the possible solution from the other side. This is game theory. But if I do not combine game theory with the human behavior, I might fail. And if I just keep human behavior in my head, I might defeat the game theory and also would not reach to a particular solution or a predictive solution. So it's like sides of the same coin. You will have to apply it both combinedly, then only you can get a proper solution on the table. Because if you defeat one side and if you do not look at that side, it's not going to solve the purpose and serve the purpose purposely. I think that will be all, Keshni. We are at your discourse now.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We definitely appreciate the energy shown from... Yes, but we are kind of running out of time. But the panelists will be available to answer your questions maybe over lunch or even after lunch. And we appreciate the energy shown to us from the audience. And I would like to wrap things up by thanking both the panelists, Mr. Ayer and Dr. Apurva, for taking your time and participating in this discussion, and for sharing your insights and for sharing your expertise to help the teams that are going to be competing tomorrow, to help these upcoming negotiators. With that said, I would also like to thank the audience for being here today, for participating in this discussion, for attentively listening, and for throwing your questions at the panelists, which you can still do over lunch and after lunch as well. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good day.
And kudos to you as well for
Yeah,
starting
thank you,
the entire
yeah.
panel discussion.
Thank you for outstanding moderation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we draw closer to the end of today's proceedings, we would like to thank you for your active participation and engagement throughout the day. With the competitions round set to commence tomorrow, we kindly remind all teams on site to be present at least 30 minutes before your respective rounds.
Thank you once again for being part of Alsinc 2025. We wish you an enjoyable evening and look forward to seeing you tomorrow as the real competition begins.